Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paverart. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile.
In the middle of New Jersey, there's four guys sitting around a table having espresso in front of a pork store called Satriali's. Remember that scene from The Sopranos? Somehow they took the mundane and they made it exciting. And that's what good marketing does. It's about storytelling. Welcome to episode 40 of the Hustle or Bust podcast. We dive into all things marketing in the world of small business. Everything from email addresses to business cards and the all too often problem that business owners find themselves in, the prisoner's dilemma when it comes to marketing. We hope you pick up a nugget or two and drop us a line with some feedback.
When you look at the brief history, well, in the general scope of things, 20 years is a brief history, but when you look at the brief history of Paverart, we've pretty much touched all the bases when it comes to marketing. When we first got into business 20 years ago, the internet was still fledgling. It was still kind of getting up off the, it was just starting to take hold. And those folks that had, that were forward thinking realized, at least they thought very seriously, that this was the future of marketing. I mean, the internet was going to be the future of marketing. Back then, it was paper ads, trade shows, boots on the ground, face-to-face meetings with clients, things like that, that essentially got your product known. And in fact, the first podcast from this new studio was with Ken Bull, and he basically raised the issue. In fact, why don't you say it? You basically brought it up when we had our little meeting here before the pod.
Well, I was asking him, with the founding of Paverart, all the planning that went into it, what was the big challenge? He mentioned, he told a story that he went for investor capital. It went to 15 meetings. He was 0 for 15. And he brought up unsolicited that the biggest challenge was exposure. How do you get your name out there? How do you get your product out there? Once they see it, they probably will have some level of interest if you find the right customer. And we didn't have the tools back then that we do today. But he brought up clearly, for a small business, small manufacturing, capital-intensive business like Paverart, marketing was a key challenge. So, it got me thinking in terms of, all right, for small businesses, I think marketing is often an afterthought. So, before we get deep into marketing, I want to maybe riff on a little bit. We talked about this yesterday. One of the best shows out there, I think, of all time in TV, Sopranos. Mm-hmm. Give me your thoughts on what made Sopranos special. And Sopranos, for those of you that don't know, is a drama from a 12-year drama? Drama, comedy, about HBO that. Series, Tony Soprano's New Jersey-based. Most people know it, but everyone's got a different opinion on what made it special. I'm curious on what hooked you on that show.
Well, the underworld intrigue, but the everyday nature, getting up, getting in your car, you're living in a community of high-end homes in North Jersey. It was just so very, very relatable. And by the way, I'm half Italian. Now,
the good half.
That's right.
He's half Jewish. Only the good half.
But it's the
Henry Hill.
There was just a lot of attraction there. Plus, I'm a Godfather 1 and 2 guy. Mm-hmm. I'm a Goodfellas guy. I'm a Casino guy. I really enjoy those movies whenever they're on, wherever they are, and whatever part of the movie it's on. I stop what I'm doing. I sit down. Hon, I can't finish this job right now. I'm going to watch the second half of Godfather 1.
Yeah, I think it was appointment TV for me. It was Sunday nights.
But it was that's right, and it was just the attraction. And there's so many things wrapped up in that. The business, the way the business was run.
The food.
It just touched all the bases.
Well, I think I agree with that. The mundane.
I'm waiting for you to reel this big fish in and what this has got to do with marketing.
Well, we'll try to, but and it's just fun talking about The Sopranos. But
true.
Yeah, three guys sitting around a table having an espresso in the middle of North Jersey as cars go by, and they're just bullshitting. I mean, I found that intriguing. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
The food scenes, the music was great. Every time, remember Journey on the last scene?
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, it had some great, and music has just got a thing of bringing people back. When you hear a song, you go back to that place that you were at the day. You almost remember it vividly. So now the other thing is, I'm not a horror movie fan, but there was blood and guts in The Sopranos.
Oh yeah.
And we were kind of talking about Goodfellas too. My son watched it for the first time this weekend, and there's a lot of murder in that, right? I mean, But when I'm watching Goodfellas, I'm actually laughing through the whole thing. So they take something that's gruesome that I normally don't watch and I don't want to see it, and I'm laughing through the whole thing. So how you do that, I don't know. It's filmmaking, it's music, nostalgia, all this stuff. But now, how does this relate to marketing? Well, most products, I think, are not that sexy. They're not that interesting. It's the story, it's the creation, it's the character development, right. It's all the stuff around it that you try and make it interesting. Now, Sopranos just did that naturally with great writing and great actors. But I think a lot of ways, how do I reel it in related to marketing? What's unique about a pizza shop?
What's unique about it's right.
What about a card store? What about a transmission, a Jiffy Lube oil change stop, the mom and pop oil stop?
Right.
An ad agency. Now here's a good one, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but ad agencies that try to sell you on social media services, and you go on their website, and they don't even have a social media presence themselves, and you're going to pay them $1,000 a month or whatever it is to promote your business. But
that's part of what we're going to talk about.
Different story altogether. But the world is generally made up of commodities and not that interesting products.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing, what it does, it puts a wrap around it and tries to make it interesting. Good marketing does, but it doesn't come easy. And tactically, what do you do? But you got to start thinking about, is your product inherently interesting or not? Most, I would say, might be, but there's a lot that aren't. You can still do great marketing if you think about it. And the reason why I bring up Sopranos and Goodfellas, they were storytelling and they made it interesting. And I think there's a lot to be learned by looking at business as it relates to great movies.
Great point.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Not that businesses are a movie or a story like that per se. Your job is to sell product, to create a good business, to do all the things that you have to do. But marketing is a key component, but you got to think about it a little differently. It's not just running an advertisement on Facebook. It's the story around it. So anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent.
Well, one of the things, that's interesting because one of the things that we had to analyze when we first started the business was, what are we selling here? Well, to be honest with you, that's pretty easy. Pavers, bricks, at the risk of offending anybody, I mean, that's pretty mundane. It's pretty boring.
Well, we're in a commodity world.
Exactly.
Here's how you know you're in a commodity world. There's a trade group that's called, a shout out to Robert Phillips once again, Hardscape Contractors of America. I'm always intrigued when someone shows a picture of a paver and then they ask, does anyone know? And they're trying to identify what it is because they either got to tear up and replace a job that wasn't done properly. Does anyone know what this paver is?
Who's the manufacturer?
Who's the
style?
Exactly. Who's the brand? Who's the manufacturer? And it's a very engaged group, lots of people. You'll see 100 comments on those posts.
Sure.
And there'll be 80 different brands. There is the definition of a commodity.
Right.
We're dealing with a sea of commodities, which is why Paverart's interesting, because we're anything but that. We stand out. We don't blend in. But I see, all right, it's Belgard, it's Unilock, it's Nicolock, and everyone's all over the board. And some people are arguing that, it's definitely this, and here's why, and this guy's arguing over here. But I'm like, man, that is the definition of a commodity right there.
If you look at all the marketing for pavers, it's not about the paver. It's about what the paver creates. It's you see the beautiful home. By the way, I don't think I've ever seen a picture of a layout where a particular paver is being used in a backyard patio where it was a house that I could afford. Mm-hmm. Okay, every house is $1 million house with with a $450,000 backyard patio with in-ground pool. It's just, they're beautiful, but that's what they're selling.
Right.
That's what they're selling.
They're selling a lifestyle.
And if you see the ads on television, it's the same thing. Pavers, again, with all due respect to the guys that are in the industry, because we're in the industry, are boring. They just, here's a paver. It's a brick. In fact, it's funny, tying this into what we were going to talk about historically, back in the day when this business was started, the only available outlet for marketing, what the one where you could broadly get your product in front of a lot of people, was paper ads.
Right.
1 page, quarter page, half page, 4-color ads that were going to be buried somewhere in a magazine, whether it be a trade magazine or a lifestyle magazine, and that was the only way you could get your product sold. We're fortunate here at Paverart that we take what's we take a product that's for all intents and purposes, yes, kind of mundane, and we turn it into something. We turn it into a very interesting design, and or a logo, or a piece of art, or whatever it might be, and that would seem to make it a little easier to kind of get out to the masses, because that's gonna catch your eye, and it did. Those paper ads definitely did a big. I mean, had it not been for the paper ads, I don't know if we're here today.
Right.
I don't know if we would have lasted 5 years.
You need
or
to
6
establish
years
a
or 10
base
years.
level of exposure for the product.
That's
and
exactly
the
right.
brand.
And we did it in 2 ways. It was too expensive to get into the lifestyle magazines, because the lifestyle magazines are very colloquial. They're very regional. And you know how many of them there are in the United States?
A ton of them.
Hundreds and hundreds.
So what's
of
an
these.
example of that? Like New Jersey Monthly or one of those? Or
Yeah, exactly. Or Philadelphia Magazine. Now, Philadelphia Magazine, there's an attraction there.
Right.
In fact, as the story be told, I'll bring my mother into this. My mother came to me one day and she said, "Michael, listen, I'm going to give you whatever the amount of money was, and I would like you to put one of your Paverart ads in the local lifestyle magazine." Now, this was in the Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania area. You can't get more specific than that. Okay, and maybe there's the attraction.
Mom
would
stories
be,
are great. You got to tell the mom story.
But the
about-
attraction would be for maybe there's 2,000 people out there that are going to get the
Right.
magazine that could afford our product and would have one of those grand backyard patios where, you know what, we're going to put a compass rose in our backyard from
Right.
Paverart.
And what was your response?
In a very, very nice way, and my brother did the same thing response-wise. In a very nice way, he said, "Mom, listen, we'd love to take your money." Okay, because back then wherever money came, we weren't going to turn it down. But Mom, we'd love to take your money, but that's really not the best way for us to spend that. We would spend that on the Landscape Architect and Specifier News, which is a trade magazine for landscape architects, and there's 2 of them. That's one of them, and that gets us in front of, let's say, 50,000, potentially 50,000 landscape architects, assuming that they're going to land on our ad when they go through the magazine. And she was just having nothing of it, and she was convinced that our business was going to get put over the top if we put that one ad in that one local lifestyle magazine, which would be the equivalent of Philadelphia Magazine,
Sure.
or New Jersey Monthly or something like that. And we're not going to take her money. We would be wasting our money doing that. So, tying this into what we did initially, we went after. There was a magazine called Hardscape Contractor. Okay, that basically was sent out to as many contractors as this magazine could get in touch with.
A free publication, pretty much, right?
Yeah, for the most part, that's absolutely correct. And it was funded by the ads. And we had a half-page ad that we put in every one. I think it came out 6 times a year, and we put a half-page ad in every one.
For a couple years or 3 years?
Oh, no. This was for at least 5.
So good, consistent
maybe
investment.
6,
Right.
exactly. I mean, it was a no-brainer that we were going to do that.
Yep.
But the results that we got were positive. And we tried to proactively, and since I handled most of the phone calls, it was easy for me to do this. I tried to proactively determine, hey, how did you find out about us?
Right.
And every time I heard, oh, I saw your ad in Hardscape magazine.
That made you feel good.
Yeah, and actually, by the way, the name of the magazine, it's still out there. It's called Hardscape magazine, and Hardscape magazine is just that. It goes after hardscape contractors.
Another non-sponsor of the program, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
That's plug number 75 for various businesses.
After the
all across the
$100,000 or so that we spent in this place for the first 5 or 6 years,
We didn't even get a cup of coffee on that one.
No, we didn't. But the bottom line is, and we can always bleep
Maybe
the
we'll
name
have them
out.
on here. Just
Or we
harass
could,
them. Harass them on the Hustler Ball
I know the
podcast.
publisher personally. He's a actually very nice guy.
But that's a good testament to that magazine because you did a 5-year. You weren't doing it 5 years without any response that it's not working, right? You're asking people that as they call in, which validated your strategy.
If we had $2,500 to $5,000 to spend, that particular quarter on advertising, that's where it was going to go.
Right.
And it did pay off, but the payoff was limited, and it was slow, and it took time. And oh, by the way, it took some creativity in creating the ads, but that creativity was somewhat simplified by the fact that we had a database of designs that were pretty intriguing and interesting looking. And
what was your approach to that from a creative?
Well,
how did you think through that?
It didn't.
You weren't repeating.
I got to be very honest with you. And Ken's input was very important here too. I mean, he put a lot of time and effort into this. And it's not what you're reading. Although if you read the content of the ad, the written word, it was pretty interesting stuff that we put. I thought it was pretty interesting anyway. But when you put that ad in a magazine that's surrounded by ads for edge restraints. And the newest, the newest version, the newest gray blend paver from such and such a company,
Right.
And the newest polymeric sand or the geotextile grid material. You put our ad up against that stuff. It's no competition. You're going, whether you want our stuff or not, you're going to look at that ad.
It's unusual.
You're going to look at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville parrot that we built, for the flamingo that we put into that ad. It was a no-brainer. I mean, what we had in that respect was something that nobody else had. We were the only people doing that, so there was an attraction there, and that made the composition of the ad no less difficult to put together, but it made it a little easier because you're not trying to sell a block of concrete.
A commodity.
Exactly.
Right.
What you're selling is you're selling a design. You're selling your creativity, the client's creativity, the unlimited possibilities. Some of the posters that we have around the office show a lot of that stuff, a lot of those catchphrases that we came up with. But anyway, that's how. That was a nice tie-in. This is how this all got started.
But what's a little bit unusual, I think, about Paverart is you had a commitment that was sustained over 5 years.
Oh, actually, it was longer than that.
Okay,
it was longer than that. We didn't get rid of the paper ads until probably I'm going to say about the 11th or 12th year, maybe the 13th year of the business, and we've been in business for 20 years.
So you had a decade-long investment.
Easily.
Where you had something going on every single month from a paper ad standpoint.
Correct.
So the name Paverart was out there consistently in a hardscape journal and one or two landscape architect to hit a different audience, right?
Exactly.
So that was a sustained, real investment in marketing
the
for a small
goal,
business.
And the goal was, and I think it was my brother that came up with the name of the company. That there was the goal was twofold. Number one, not just to show the product, but to establish the brand name. Establishing the brand name so that when you talk about designs in a concrete paver world or a brick paver world, you immediately think of Paverart. Easy to remember. It's self-defining.
Yep.
It's art in pavers. Paver art. It was simple.
Yeah, the goal is to be a Band-Aid of.
But beautiful.
Of
That's
our
exactly
work.
right. So when you think of designs, you want that Band-Aid, not bandage, you want that Band-Aid assignment of a name where a brand name all becomes the definition of what the product is. And so that was the two-headed monster that we had to overcome. So every one of our ads had the name Paverart plastered in at least 15 to 20% of the ad space. So the block letters, very large, kind of catchy.
And our tagline, 3 words.
Just imagine, create, and beautify.
Right.
And that, again, and then there came a time when Mick decided that he wanted to have an identifiable icon for Paverart, so that when you thought, okay, we had established the name, we did the best we could to establish the name. It took us quite a while to do that. But now, just as there's the iconic logo for Chevrolet, there's the iconic logo for Pepsi, we wanted an iconic logo for Paverart. So Mick went about the business of coming up with something like that, and he did. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful iconic logo. And to this day, it still sticks with us. In fact, I'm looking at your shirt. You've got the Paverart, and you've got that the P with the gold and the red, the yellow, gold, and the red. So for a little company like this to have that kind of marketing presence was probably unusual. My brother had come from a world where brand marketing was extremely important, so he understood that world.
And you can tell.
Exactly. Mick created the designs that would eventually become, and get included in quite a few of those ads, including Labyrinths, by the way, I might add. And my job was essentially to come up with the verbiage. What's the verbiage that's going to be included with this? And it wasn't so divided like that. I mean, we all participated, but it was that collaborative effort, I think, really, and that's why we saved every ad that went into every periodical that we bought space for. And whenever we got included in a magazine, in an article, whenever we got included in a newspaper article for something that was done that we were involved with, we saved all that. It's all still here, and it's a historical document.
It's interesting. I certainly appreciate the history. We talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial world of acquiring businesses.
Right.
And what do you buy when you buy a business? As I did here with Paverart, you're buying the accumulation of goodwill for a brand, in its essence, right? So when you talk about you had a 10-year investment, multiple different periodicals, that establishes a level of awareness that doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
Now, yeah, word of mouth is always great. If you got word of mouth and a contractor has a good experience, a homeowner puts in a beautiful compass rose, tells her neighbor and they buy one, that's always the best form of advertising. But you're buying that accumulated blood, sweat, and tears of you and Ken and Mick pouring over what's the creative for this month versus next month versus the next month. And then Mick coming up with the design for the logo, the icon. And that over time, there is a lot of value. Let's say a business out there has not made a fortune, but they've survived. What Paverart is, essentially, is a story of survival until we can figure out how to get to that next level, right?
The contractor, the idea behind that's a great point, Mark. The idea behind that was that the contractor was the guy. He wasn't going to come up with the design, but he was going to come up with the client. He was going to come up with the end user client that would come to him and say, but I want to change this up a little bit. I like what you're going to do here, but I want to personalize this in some way. How can I do that? Paverart. You want that contractor to think immediately of Paverart.
Let me give you a little minor thing. What is your email address?
mbull@paverart.com.
Give me an example of a contractor email. You don't have to name a specific. What's a common contractor email?
In regards to like an inquiry or something like that?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Sally Jones at yahoo.com. Mm-hmm. What does that scream? The 80s called, and they want their email address back.
Oh, God.
Rod Jones at Comcast.net. Is this a business, or are you dealing with the... Yeah. Or my wife still got... I can't believe Kay Olivito at AOL.com. She's still got an AOL address. God bless her. God bless her.
You have two extremes there. You've got the guy... You've got the business owner that has a 1.5 mile long email address because he's got every... he's got every part of his business is in there.
I've got a markolivito9 at gmail.com, a personal email address, but I also have a hustlerbus.com. Right. I got a paverart.com. Not a big deal, but these are the same contractors that are trying to pitch a $100,000 backyard renovation job.
The part that I never understood was, and we'll talk about the importance of websites and the evolution of websites over our 20-year period. But that's
your email. Those are subtle little things. Don't you think people make an impression on it?
What I never understood was our email, my email address will drive you to the website. The suffix is paverart.com.
Right. So
all you have to do is punch your, into Google, Yahoo, Bing, whoever you use, and it's mostly Google, I guess. You can punch paverart.com and find us.
So Sally Jones at yahoo.com.
Right.
The example, they're not punching in Yahoo. They're going to go to Yahoo, their website.
Yeah.
They've created in that little thing, that little interaction, which happens to one-on-one communication. All right, what's your email? Sally Jones at yahoo.com or AOL.com. You've created now this is not big stuff, but you're creating
it's a collection of those connections. It's a collection of connections.
It's cumulative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't mean you're not going to give $100,000 to Sally Jones. But it does mean if you can have a better impression, and now you have all right, I'm going to go into paverart.com, then what am I going to see on the website? Is it a professional website or not?
Yeah.
So I think you got to talk about websites should be your home. We don't have a store per se. We got an office, but you're going to go look at our website. And there's a lot of contractors out there, a lot of small businesses don't even have a website. Or they've got a website and it hasn't been done since 1994, let's say, hasn't been updated. Updating websites is difficult, it's time consuming, it's a pain in the ass. I can't stand it. And websites tend to be a point in time project where every 5 years a business brings in an agency or whatever they do, and they freshen it up and they revamp it. What I've always told people, you've got to get out of the world of looking at it as a point in time every 8 years when the thing gets stale and it's stale. You got to get into a weekly update mode. And you're only going to do that, by the way, if it's an easy CMS, content management system.
Yeah.
We use Wix, another non-sponsor of the program. Wix is very easy. WordPress I found to be clunky. But there's no reason why you can't take pictures of a job, of your pizza, of whatever it is that you're selling, and then update that to the website. And then Google will give you points.
Sure.
Google recognizes if you're updating it or not. And Google's a big thing.
The
first thing is easy website that a owner
Well, let's
can
talk
update.
about that a little bit, because at this point, everybody has a website.
Most people do.
My son has a website.
I'd say 90% of people
My
do.
daughter has a website.
Right.
Everybody has a website.
It's
not
easy enough.
not just businesses.
There's no excuse not to have one.
When we started this, in this particular, and to me, this is interesting. We've been in business for 20 plus years, and during that span, when we started, websites were still kind of a novelty. They were. That's right. And you couldn't build one yourself. The odd person out there that started a business that you could find that could actually assist you in building a website, and it was one of those deals. Okay, well, what do you want on your website? What do you want it to say? You got to give me some. You got to give me some written. Give me a written script so I can include that on the different pages. Now, our first website I think we had built, by the time we built that first website, we were in business for 6 months. And I think we had, I don't know, maybe 12 pieces that we built. You say, man, that's hard to stretch into a decent.
Sure.
But back then, it didn't matter. Most people who had a website didn't have much to look at. Okay, but it's we wanted to be forward thinking enough that, okay, this is going to take hold at some point. Let's get started on this now. And my brother handled all that. Ken handled all that. The only thing I did was the verbiage end, and Mick obviously with the content. He's building the content that's going to go on there. But there was no connection there. People are not going to find Paverart. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to find Paverart. We're the only guys that do what we do. When you look at the other people in the industry, the manufacturers of the raw materials that we make, that we use to build these pieces, the E.P. Henrys, the Belgards, the Cambridges of the world, their websites were okay, but there was no flash, there was no spirit, there was no excitement that was generated by them. It was basically, here's our product, here's our phone number, call us. In that 20-year period, it just, in fact, I'll never forget this. I had a good buddy of mine, a fellow by the name of Lee McCreary, and I we were at his place in Philly one night for a dinner party, and we had to run around the corner to get something. Okay, and I went with him. And while we were waiting to pick up the food or whatever it was, we stopped in this bar and had a beer. And we started talking about. He was asking me about Paverart.
Were they waiting for something important to cook with, or you just? I know she's waiting for the olive oil, but fuck it, let's get a beer.
This is Philadelphia. It was Philadelphia, the takeout capital of the world.
Okay.
But we started talking about Paverart. He was interested in the business, and he said, "What are you guys doing for advertising?" And I told him what we were doing, and it was fairly limited at the time. Again, paper ads, and that was pretty much it. And a website that was okay, but it was nothing to write home about. But he said, you really need to look into this new phenomenon called social media. Okay, and we were probably 5 years in at that point, so this would have been 15 years ago. Still, the advent of social media had not taken hold in a big way, but Lee was forward-thinking enough to say, you know what, this is where it's going to be. It's going to be inexpensive. It's going to be much broader ranged. For a company like yourself that basically deals nationally and maybe eventually internationally, this is how you're going to grab people. And I just looked at him like he had two heads, because I'd heard a little bit about some of the, at that point it was I think MySpace had just come out. That's where we were back then. And I took that back, talked to Kenny about it, and Kenny said the same thing. He says, yeah, that's where it's going. But that's where we got started. That was the first website. It wasn't until Mick one day came in and said, our website's not very good. We need to put more pictures of things that we build on there. We need to inundate the website with photos of what we do. That's what's going to sell our product. That was our second website, and we farmed that out to a local company down by the Cooper River, and they came in and basically said, yeah, we can do this for you. We can build your site. And we went through the whole business of doing that, and it was hard. It was very, very hard. We wound up they had copyright people, but
how'd you assess their talent for copyright for our business?
Well, they would submit examples of what they wanted to go on a particular page for a particular style of product that we were manufacturing. And then Mick and I we'd spend a whole afternoon just tearing each word apart.
So it wasn't a usable, you had to edit heavily.
We had to edit heavily. But that's understandable. When you're first getting into this, you have to understand the fact we're the only ones doing what we're doing, okay? They don't know. It's not like they're selling a car, okay? The sizzle that they have to bring to the table is something that we have to create for them, or give them the general idea of what it is that we're looking for, and then hopefully they're going to take that, interpret it, and do something that's going to be usable on that particular web page. And it was okay, but the idea of farming that out to somebody else, for somebody else to do, and giving up that control.
You just nailed it.
Was just not. It's it was very distasteful, and we hated the weeks that went by to create this, and we started to get impatient. Guys, this cannot be that difficult. It's not that difficult. Here's the pictures. Here's the pictures broken down into different market segments.
Were they stealing your money, or were they struggling, or both?
We did this. Basically, what happened was they built the site, but they also sold the idea that they were going to manage the site on a monthly basis for a monthly fee.
Yep.
And that...
Talk about that delay. Why was the delay? Was it because they're trying to develop the creative copy, or the technical issue? What was the delay in getting it to market?
We found out that the actual company that we were dealing with was not directly building the pages of the website. They subbed it out to a very small firm in Philadelphia, and that firm was populated by very young people who kind of had the cutting edge technology and knowledge to get it onto the internet, but the actual connection. I mean, there's three different entities. There's Paverart, there's the ad firm, and then there's the firm, the subcontracted firm that's actually building the website, building the pages, getting all the background stuff done. Okay, all the IT stuff done in the background, and it was 2 months before actually all three of us were in a room together to actually, Mick came to me one day and says, "This is crazy. This is just ridiculous. Why? I don't even know who's building the website. We know the guy who's telling us that their business is building it, but they're not actually building it. Somebody else is building it, and we're not. Why are we not talking to them?"
I remember going through the archives, and Mick was undressing either you or Ken or both of you, saying, "We're going to miss the season the rate this is going."
Yeah, that's it. And it's because the
season being
what happened. And we did this. Well, we did this during the winter. This was done between this was like a November to March kind of situation, and that's how long it took. But it kept dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And our season back then, not anymore.
April through
thank goodness.
September.
Well, it was mid-March, early April through late September, maybe October.
So and then Mick lights the fire under everybody internally that says, "At the rate this is going, we're going to miss the season." So
Right.
You guys had a meeting there at the agency.
Yeah, we did, and that's what pushed it forward. Now, the site turned out okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, if I were to rate that site, I'd give it about a 5.5, maybe a 6. The bill of goods that we were sold was that for a monthly fee, which was fairly hefty, they were going to track incoming information. They were going to tell us where, who was tapping into us, what, where in the United States these inquiries were coming from, so we could regionalize the inquiries. You figure Montana's probably going to be the lowest. The Los Angeles area is probably going to be high. New York's going to be high. Chicago's, that kind of stuff. It got to be such a mishmash and a conglomeration of crapola, and I say that freely, and I'm going to get mad here in a minute because it really was a tremendous waste. That part was a tremendous waste of time and money. And we had
How long did it go on for?
I think it was about, I'm going to say about 4 months, maybe 5 months, and Kenny finally came up, and as is Kenny's way, we got together, and Ken said, "I'm pulling the plug on this. This is ridiculous." I tracked every incoming call. How did you hear about us? Oh, every time I heard, well, I went to your website. Okay, what search words did you use? We had, it must have been, 25 pages of search words, okay, different combinations thereof. And again, this was back when, the Google imprint was not, it was starting to take hold, but it was not, it wasn't as sophisticated as it is now.
But why the frustration? Why did the pull of the plug of the local agency that you outsourced?
Because we're paying out all this money per month, for Christ's sake.
You didn't think you were getting returned?
Absolutely not. And trying to measure that return, we did everything that we could to try to measure that return, which was basically, hey, how'd you hear about us?
Yep.
Okay. Can you give me some idea what you were searching for? How did you find us? How did you light on us?
You couldn't trace it back to the agency, basically?
It's when you looked at the number of incoming phone calls that we got, it was probably, 2%, 3%, and it just got to be one of those situations where, and by the way, how they catch you? It's the doubt. The fear. Well, if we pull the plug on this, does that mean we're not going to get any inquiries whatsoever? Not even the 1%, 2%, or 3% that are coming in now that we can track? Well, when you measure that up against the paper ads were better.
Right.
Okay? What we didn't know, which is what you learned subsequently, and I learned subsequently, and what we've all learned subsequently in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, is the machinations of search engines. Okay, all the background information that's necessary to get you on that first page. I'm sure everybody out there now, well, maybe a lot of people, maybe not everybody, but it's so different now. It's so sophisticated now. It's It's a necessary evil. Lee McCreary was right. It's not only did it take off, it's taken over the world. And back then, all I can say was the emanation of websites that we've had, and we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, we've had 5 of them, okay? The last one being the one that you and Kim attacked and basically rebuilt, through using the Wix platform. It's been.
But I hear a lot of pain in the voice with the website.
That's right, and
which I think is common among small business owners.
It was the lack of knowledge and the lack of time necessary to investigate and get into the background of all this. To your credit, you said, screw that shit. I'm going to do this. We're going to do this ourselves, okay? And you took the time off-site at your home, investigate, get into the background, get Kim involved in a very big way. That you started that, if not immediately, damn near after you bought the business. And over the last 5 years, you could probably start your own agency with the information that you've learned, okay? And the beauty of that, with you getting deeply into that, is the fact that you come from a marketing background, okay? You understand the nuances of, the turn of a phrase. You see this particular product, you'll see a piece laying out on the floor, assembled in our factory. You look at that so much differently than I do, okay? And that's the difference. You can interpret that piece on the floor into something that could be a marketing extravaganza, and it's turned heads. Instagram, give me a break. Instagram, 15 years ago, nada. Now we're all over Instagram. Well, I won't. I would prefer that you talk about that because you can speak more intelligently to it than I can. But what this all came from, all I can say is I don't think we get to where we are today if we didn't at least get our hands dirty initially and understand that the website's your home. That's the replacement for your brick and mortar store. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to have that. It's got to be attractive. Don't give me a 2-page website with a phone number, a contact name, which is basically a dodge because you as a contractor don't have time to answer all the phone calls that are coming in to get your product, to get your services out there. Hopefully that website's gonna. You come home every night and there's 3 inquiries from the website. Well, I'm sorry. There's 80 other contractors out there fighting for the same space on Google that you are. Mm-hmm. Okay, you've got to find some way to get into this. Understand that that's if you want to be something more than just 10 mile, 20 mile, 25 mile radius in regards to your influence and who you want to market to. You got to get into this stuff. Anyway, you're.
Look, when I hear you talk, I hear a lot of the pain and the struggle with launching something when you've got a third party involved, or in your case, multiple, or the case of early days of Paverart, right. An agency, a subcon, and then the founding team of Paverart. Right. And the pressure, the cost, you ended up pulling the plug after 4 years. I don't think that experience is unique. I think it's pretty common. The reason why people don't have a website is because they don't have the technical capability to build it, or they think it's too hard, or a host of other reasons. So they employ some type of third party. Could be the high school kid, college kid, could be an agency, could be whatever. My experience, I don't know if it's unique or not, but it's very similar to yours. The agency model is a prisoner dilemma for a small business owner. If you're a big corporation, you're going to go with an agency. I don't know any Fortune 100 company or Fortune 500 company that is not using an agency. They all use agencies. It's just how they do things. Small business is a different world. So first thing I observed when I came into Paverart, we were paying an agency $750 a month to, quote, manage the website. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, how do I manage the website? How do I look at it? And it was WordPress. And I had experience because I was doing a personal blog on WordPress. So I knew just enough to know what I didn't know, and to know. And we are a art business. We are making photocentric type things, so it displays very well. But that comes with pros and cons, so to speak. But the long story short is, if I want to update a picture, I struggle with how to do that. I gave it to the agency; they did it. Okay, that's good. What do I get for $750 a month? It's housed on a server. They're not doing it. It's a third party. It's Yahoo or it's Amazon Warehouse Services or wherever. So they're not doing that. They give me a report every month. And here's what they did for this month. They updated in WordPress. They've got plugins. Those are like little apps that make things easier. And WordPress, every time there's a new app or a new third-party app, they push it to you and it says upload or update. And then they click the button and it updates. It takes 90 seconds or 10 seconds. So they send me a report of all the plugins that were updated. Well, I knew this from my blog because I had enough hand dirt under their nails. I updated my own plugins too for Hustle or Bust. I clicked update and I was done. They called that a fucking report that they would send me. Here's what we did for Paverart.com. We updated these 6 plugins. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This is what I'm paying $750 a month for? And then once a month I would give them new pictures to upload? So I'm like, this is a prisoner's dilemma of number one, that's $750. So anything over $100 in a small business is relevant money. Now, okay, I'm going to get all these sophisticated people here. Well, what's your time worth? Well, I get it, right? As a small business, what you're not trying to save is $750. You're trying to you're trying to get closer to the business, to the brand, and then empower yourself to be able to do things.
Exactly.
I bet if we asked 1,000 or 100 random small business owners, how many of them can write a blog post, update a picture, change a contact info, do something basic, do you think? I would hope it's 80%. But I wouldn't bet my last paycheck on that they can do that.
I don't think so either.
Now, how many are in the prisoner's dilemma agency model? I think that's a small percentage. I don't think they're doing much at all. They got a basic website up that they went to an agency or they went to a third party, they got it up, and they kind of keep it there and it gets kind of stale. So that's the thing they got to fix. They got to fix the staleness factor. And then Google rewards that. So, but anyway, I think your experience is equal to mine. I'll give you, we did bring an agency in to help us with SEO. Let's just say it was $1,000 a month. So here, and by the way, there's 2 great salespeople, 2 great classes of salespeople in the world. The best salespeople I've ever seen are with technology companies. You've never seen a salesperson till you see a technology salesperson. They can sell you an ERP, big fancy system better than anybody. Once you go to implementation, your fucking world's going to come shattering down, right?
That's right.
SEO and ad agencies have the big ones, they've got a similar great skill set of salespeople. They don't do the work, though. They bring you in the door and they get you to sign up for a 6-month contract or even a month-to-month contract. And then this team over here, who you've never met, does all the work. And that's who you're going to interface with to work on the SEO. So here's how we got sold the bill of goods on SEO. It was the fear. It was the unknown. Look, Paverart's a great brand. You got all these pictures that they build you up, and then they say, but you really suck, and here's why. You've got all these technical issues that are holding you back, and we're a Google third-party certified company. And they're never going to rank you that high because you've got these technical issues that you've got to fix. And there's all this technical stuff that we got no prayer of fixing. So, all right, well, and I'm like, oh, shit. Well, we have no ability to do that. I'm not going to go learn that like I can change my contact number, so we got to bring someone in. And then, oh, by the way, once you get done with that, then you got to start doing things that Google reward, like blogging or content creation, right?
Videos.
So we did it for 2 months, and they were supposedly fixing these technical things, although I didn't get good quality of data on. Tell me specifically what you fixed, because I want to learn that for future. If we're screwing up on how we're uploading things, I want to know that, and we'll stop doing that behavior. Never got that report. Don't know if they didn't do it or what, but that's a red flag. All right, now we're moving into the content phase of blogging, right? And now I'm like, all right, this is writing. So like you, Mick, and Ken had that experience, who's going to be able to write about Paverart and art and my business? I don't care if we're a pizza shop. Someone from an agency based in California is going to write about pizza or Paverart. I want to see what this looks like. Got the article, and I was blown. I'm like, did they just freaking send us to India? It wasn't even in English vernacular. I think they outsourced the damn thing.
Yeah.
So we get on the phone.
I remember that day.
Tell me, how did this happen?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going through with this account rep who's managing it, and he's like, well, yeah, we got a content team, and it gives me all this stuff. All right, you guys got one more shot. So the one more shot was they were going to do 2 or 3 pieces of content, all right, and they're coming through. Well, right before that meeting with Google's Zoom call, whatever it was, Then we find out that our account rep is changing. All right, so our account rep, so they got to relearn all of our stuff. So if they're not in our business day to day, and now they're going to start changing reps out, that learning curve's got to start all over again. So we get on the phone with this new rep, young kid, couldn't have been a day over 23. I'm like, hey, what's going on? So we're going through the call, and I'm like, the veins are coming out of my neck before we even start the call. This kid starts bullshitting on the opening call. No, just beautiful day out here. And this is February in New Jersey. It's like freaking negative 20 degrees out. And he's in California. Oh, just living the dream here in California. 80 degrees out. Yeah, just living the dream. It's Friday. And I'm like, the veins are coming out of my neck. I'm like, and I'm just keeping my mouth shut. And he keeps bullshitting with me about trivial shit, nothing to do with the business. And I'm like, are we going to talk about what's going on with the content? He goes, oh, yeah, sure. All right, here's where we are. He pulls up a Gantt chart of all this stuff. We plan on doing this next month, this next month, this next month. All right, and what did you do for today's call on the plan? Now, pull up what the commitments were. And there was nothing. Well, yeah, new to the transition team. I'm like, you guys are done. Fired, right? So that was like a 3 or 4 month. Let's just say that was $3,000. But the frustration. So the point being, creative copy, blog posts, I can't see how a third-party agency, unless they grew up in the business that you're in, have industry experience. Now, there are a couple of, a shout-out to Halstead Marketing. They came from the landscape industry, and they kind of know the business, right? They grew up in it. So that's the one exception. If you're a generic ad agency or any type of agency, and you're cutting across all restaurants, hardscaping, contracting, car dealerships, you got no free.
You have no expertise in that, none.
So the small business owner, if you don't believe that you could tell your story better than a third party, that's the first problem. You got a confidence problem.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're a great writer. That doesn't mean you can get in front of a camera and tell your story, but somebody in your team better. So I think the first mindset shift has to be, I'm going to tell my story. This is my freaking business, and I'm going to figure out who is the right talent within my team that can help me tell the story. I think also people get intimidated by, it's hard to do videos and blogging. There's a judgment, there's a fear of people putting out content, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what if it's not good? These guys, and there's a lot of entrepreneurial porn out there, that there's some great people that their content's engaging, it's great, and we do not have that ability here in-house. We don't. I give ourselves a C- on our marketing on what it could be versus where it is. Now, our activity is pretty good. We're doing something every day, and we've got 15 freaking social platforms, and we got a blog, and we got all this stuff. We're not necessarily focused, but we've got activity. I would say step one is define your baseline. Do you have a website? Yes or no? What is your traffic? Do you understand? Are you getting 100 visits a day, 10 visits a day? Where's it coming from? Get a feel for your baseline, and then start to get some level of activity. Pick a couple platforms, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, whatever's right for your business, and start doing some type of daily post activity. Anyway, long riff there. But I think your experience with mine on the agency world is consistent. It's more negative than positive. That doesn't mean you do not look at third parties to help you. You got to bring in expertise.
Yeah, but you got to be very discerning. Go
Realistic
in with your eyes wide open. What I think one of the things that, and this is on the tail of what you just said, I think one of the things that we do exceptionally well is flood all our social media platforms. I mean, they're flooded with content.
They are.
And at some point,
the creative
somebody that's looking to do something like what we do, they're going to find it eventually. Whereas 15 years ago, not so much.
Yeah, I give us a D- on creative output.
Well, actually,
I give us a D- on frequency and
it depends on what.
consistency.
Look, creative output can be just as simple as, an honest shotgun video of something that we just did in our shop with 3 guys standing around gawking at it because they were admiring their work.
Right.
Okay? And that lasts 25 seconds. Well, okay, but they're not looking at the guys, they're looking at the piece. Somebody that's interested in Paverart's looking at that design. Oh my God, if those guys can do that, I know they can do this for me. And that's where we get the call. Now the nature of virtually every call that we get from an end user being defined as a homeowner, okay, that particular market, which is for us has essentially exploded in the last 3 years, that so how'd you find out about Paverart? Oh, I did a search. Wow. Had you done a search on Paverart 12 years ago, you wouldn't have found us. You wouldn't know what to look for. The search words weren't out there that would have actually gotten you to our website. And whatever the back end stuff is required to make sure that happens was just not there. It's there now. And how many people call and say, "Yeah, I saw." Yeah, it's funny. I typed in, backyard patio design, a patio design. They found us on Pinterest. Okay, I took this call the other day. The young lady that was calling, she was all excited about this. I didn't realize that that this type of thing was available out there. Oh, great! How did you find out about us? Well, I found you on Pinterest. And she says, "You're all over Pinterest." I typed in Compass, and like 80% of the content on Pinterest is Paverart. You can't. We're all over the place on Pinterest.
Well, here's
and what's Pinterest? Pinterest is basically
it's an idea board.
It's all it is. It's just block after block after block after block of pictures, and you pick the one you want, and you get to a page, and it gives you a little bit of content. It's a massive, massive website.
Here's a fun fact for you. We've got 13 social media platforms that people can possibly find us on.
Right.
The most effective, there's in terms of driving organic traffic to us, it's organic. It's Google organic search, and then it's number 2 is Pinterest. Mm-hmm. We spend 0 time on both of them.
I know.
Kim does maybe an hour a week on Pinterest compared to everything else that we're doing. Pinterest is 1% of our time investment and money investment,
right.
And it's getting us the number 1 results. The halfway intelligent person would say, well, maybe you should spend some more freaking time on Pinterest. Well, why do I give myself a C-? Basic little factoids like this.
Right.
We're not there yet. Now, we spend a relative fortune on Google ads. Now, why do we do that? Because time is my currency. And I am getting 1 million impressions a month on Google. Now,
and you're also getting first page location.
Yeah, so we're getting real results, I think, from Google, but we're spending a fortune on it.
Right.
And we got no real expert looking at, are we optimizing that level of investment? The answer to that is no. Once again, C-. So we're not coming from you. We're not coming on this podcast from a position of expertise. We're coming from a lot of questions. So most of the stuff that we talk about, we've got experience in, but we're not calling it, right. We are not excellent marketers. We're a small business, over-resourced in paid channels because our time is limited. I just said that our organic reach is better on Pinterest, yet we're spending 1% of our time on that, and we haven't reallocated. Well, why aren't we? Well, Kim manages that one. I manage a lot of the other ones, and we haven't gotten on the same page because Kim's also doing our bookkeeping. Kim's also doing our taxes. She's doing a lot of different stuff.
Sure.
So her time is not exactly at my disposal. So kind of sound familiar for a small business owner, right?
Sure, exactly right.
Time is your enemy and your asset.
So somebody's going to be out there going, okay, well, what has all this resulted in? Well, what it's resulted in is basically 2.5 times sales in the last 3 years.
Yeah, so it's kind of working.
It's more than kind of working. Well, it's again going back to the original premise, and Ken brought it up. Exposure. People need to know the name. They need to see what we do.
We're in the stadium.
And this is exactly what social media is getting. If it wasn't for social media, we're just not going to be where we are.
Now, I want to be the cautionary tale for a small business owner, because we've talked about you can't think twice about outsourcing it. Right. Get dirt under your nails and start to learn this stuff. Change your Yahoo email. Try to professionalize a little bit if you can. All that stuff is accumulative. Not any one of these things is a silver bullet. They got to be stacked on top of each other that over time they're going to make an impact.
Exactly.
Here's another small story of stacking things. I come into the business and I'm going through all the expenses and I'm like, $65. What is this? It was a cleaning service that we paid every month, $65. My first impression when I walked through Paverart, Jesus Christ, there's freaking dirt everywhere. Why is there dirt everywhere? And then you gave me a little lesson. Do you know what a paver is made out of? It's made out of kind of like sand, and we're cutting the shit, and dirt goes everywhere. So I'm like, well, either they're not doing a good job, or we got an inherently tough environment here, right? There's fucking dirt everywhere. So do we have to bring her? What if we brought her in once a week? There'd still be dirt everywhere.
Right.
They said that we're in a dirty. So what are our core values on the back of our T-shirt? Well, we got, what is it? Grit, grind,
hustle, repeat.
Hustle, repeat. So at some point, you just got to throw your hands up and say, "This is what we're about." This is our DNA. We're either going to run from it or we're going to embrace it. I can't hire a cleaning service every 1 hour to clean this place up. This is the dirtiest freaking business I've ever seen. I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous. So let's just embrace it. And it's hard work, it's sweat, it's all this stuff, but we are making art. So we have paver artists making paver art, right? Mm-hmm. So a business has to think about, and by the way, I keep going back to the pizza shop. I'm fascinated with pizza. It's a commodity business. Everyone kind of does it differently. But you ever see a pizza guy in the back? Another little side story. We got this little restaurant in our town, and I love getting a seat. That's kind of like, it's almost like in the kitchen. The kitchen has an opening, and the table's right here. And I get to see them make pizza all night on a Friday night. Friday nights in Jersey is pizza night, right? So and I don't know why, but they've got black uniforms. So what clashes with black?
Flour. They got freaking white all over them. I don't know why they don't wear white, but they're wearing black. So all of the doughs on the pizza guys, and it's amazing, and they're working their ass off. The phones are ringing nonstop, and the waitresses, God bless them, they're going back and forth. They can't even answer the phone. The phone is ringing. They hang up the phone if it's ringing again, and they got two phones, and they can't keep the freaking phones answered. And the guy's got flour all over him. I'm like, and he's got no website. Now, would he do more business on a Friday night if he had a website and a digital strategy and all this? I don't know, but look, the first thing I'd be thinking of as a business owner, I want to hear about that flour guy. When he goes home, what does he do with that? Does it clog up the dryer? I mean, tell me the story about the flour and the pizza guy, and I keep going on, but the mundane, again, back to the sea of commodities, I find the story about the people working in the business, particularly small business, kind of going back to Sopranos too. The mundane three dudes around the espresso in the middle of a Jersey street, to me, is intriguing. I find tremendous entertainment value from the mundane being told as a story. I want to know about that guy with the flour on his shirt. Where did he come from? How long has he been doing this? How long does it take to become an expert with a pizza? If I get a pizza oven in my backyard, will I have his skill? Will he make it better than me? My mind just starts going, like the freight train on that topic. So I'm not saying that could be a marketing strategy, but people do value who they're doing business with. I mean, Joe Connolly wrote us a long email that he did a ton of research that I didn't even know about. He was just a gentleman enough to tell us about it. That he researches, and Stu Weiss does the same thing. Yeah.
He makes a choice. He was very conscious with who he gives his dollars to. He kind of views that as a personal obligation and a privilege.
For those people that don't know, these are two
customers.
Joe Connolly's a recent client. Stu Weiss is a client from several years ago.
Another
we've had
gentleman.
tremendous. We had a tremendous interface with both of those.
And I consider them kind of friends, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they're real gentlemen.
They're certainly friends of Paverart.
I mean, they're friends of Paverart, and I think I can call him today. He would pick up the phone.
Both
and we'd
are
have
first class individuals.
But the thing about Stu is he wrote that in his endorsement of Paverart, that he makes a conscious choice of who to do business with. He can spend his money anywhere, but he makes a conscious choice, and he views that as a vote of confidence. Kind of an interesting way to think about spending your money. So what matters there is they're going to do a little bit of research on you. So the more content you have about your people, your team, your values, that does matter. Would it be the first thing that I tackle as a business owner? No. First thing I would tackle is get your basic foundation in order. No different than building a house. You can't build walls unless your foundation's solid, right? Get your website, get your materials. When the phone rings, who answers it? Is it a third party? Is it someone that you have? When a lead comes in, do you have the ability to service it? Or are you just going to spend all this time and energy and money and you can't even answer the phone or return a phone call in a timely manner? Otherwise, you're just pissing money away, right? You're bringing people into the top of the funnel that you can't convert them into a qualified lead type of thing.
And eventually an order. I think one of the biggest problems that a small business encounters is time and time management. And I guess what we're trying to say in a nice way is that time management in a small business, really, there's a self-discipline that's involved that is, it's a beautiful thing and really hard to expedite.
Now, you didn't design our business card, our new one. You did our first one.
Right.
But you do remember our business card, right?
I sure do.
Can you tell a story about what you see on the business card in 30 seconds or less? Just kind of run through the content. It's a four-sided, for those that are not on YouTube, it's a four-sided business card that you fold in half. And we spent some amount of time. We didn't kill ourselves, but we've got a number of things on the card. And give us your just riff on a couple of things that you see there.
For all intents and purposes, this card, it almost gives it's from the past to the present, a quick, almost historical rendition of who Paverart is. The front part of the card basically has one of our signature pieces that we did for Leonardtown, Maryland.
We can talk for an hour on that.
Oh my God, that was just a 40-foot diameter compass rose. I mean, we've talked about this before. I won't belabor the point, but that's front and center. That's the first thing you see. But on that first page, on that first part of the card, and there's again 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to this card, and it's creased in the center, so you can bend it into a normal calling card size, business card size. But there's Mick's icon for Paverart. There's the font and the oversized uppercase letters for Paverart. Our trademark. The first page. It's got your name. All the contact information is right on. You don't have to go past this first page,
right,
and you have a pretty good idea what Paverart does. But then you open it up, and you're just inundated with really cool pieces of stuff, designs that were built by us. Some of them iconic. I mean, there's the dogfish head compass rose that we built last year, which I still have yet to get down there, but I'm going to get down there, and I'm going to have a beer on that in their that plaza where that was put. There's the backyard piece that my brother put in his backyard deck, which has been there now for the better part of 15 years. It's just those 2 pages go through all of that, and then this is a line that we had to change the number of years, but we used to use this line in a lot of our ads. World leader in custom paver design for over 20 years. Well, we are the world leader because we're the only one that does it. So it's very easy for us to say. But what's really cool...
But it's true.
It's true. But what updates this card and makes it really recent is the back 4th slot of the card where you actually show it's the Paverart iconic logo, the Paverart name, but you show the characters that make up this business. All of us, you, me, Nick, Ray, John, Brian, your son Dominic, in a literal sense, exactly. And it's a really cool looking picture of look, here's the crew that's basically building all of this stuff that you see in the previous 3 slots.
So when you say characters, just for the audience that can't see it, we literally turned everyone's likeness. They're just picture a selfie of every single person. We turned it into a cartoon with a third-party artist.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I call it the superheroes. That's what I view small business employees that are committed. They're superheroes.
And you nailed it. Yeah, it's and then we've got the grit, grind, hustle, repeat, which. For all intents and purposes, imagine, create, and beautify was our tagline for a long time. But the grit, grind, hustle, repeat.
It's more of a core value of the internal.
It is a core value or core values, and it really does in this one card. It really does give a person a really good idea of who we are and what we do. And quite frankly, I'm very proud of the card, and I had nothing to do with building it.
Well, and it's and the only reason, by the way, the only reason why we redesigned the card is because we had a trade show and we needed something to put out.
Oh yeah.
And so nothing. The ultimate inspiration is a deadline. Some famous, I can't remember, Bucknell said that or whatever. But take your business card, and most business cards are one-sided. Make it two-sided. If you can make it four-sided, do that. And what is the story that you want to tell? Now, some of this again, it goes back to your product. If you're a pizza shop or you're a car dealer, I mean, this is the kind of people get it, right?
Right.
But good marketing sucks you in and you want to bring people, especially if you're selling a high ticket item, you got to go a little deeper than that. You got to think about values. You got to think about storytelling. You got to think about how do you convey that message. Again, not the first thing I would do. I would ramp up my activity and figure out a way not to get out of that prisoner's dilemma thing, to get a little bit further along the path. Look, why I give us, because we are time strapped and we are so heavily invested in Google for advertising, I don't know. What we do need is not an agency. We need a ninja coach that will charge me $1,000, high ticket coach, for 2 to 3 hours of his time, or whatever the heck it is, and do an audit on our ad spending to get us better at it, so that as we go along and keep spending money, we're smarter about it. So we do need expertise, and I'm willing to pay for it. What I'm not willing to do, a lot of these agencies, they give you for $500 a month, here's what we're going to do. And they give you 30 things they're going to do. One post a day on Facebook, one post a day on Instagram, SEO server. They go through all this stuff, right? And a lot of it we're doing, right? Now, they might do it better, but now I'm going to outsource it, and they're going to somehow make money for, let's just say, $750 a month.
Right.
How are they going to make money doing all that? To do this well is almost a full-time job. Well, they're not going to do it well. They're going to take your content and do a post, and they're going to check off the box. So it's a very low level of service, or else they can't make money. Or they're hiring people overseas for 75 cents an hour or something ridiculous, and then just checking off all those boxes.
Yeah.
That is not marketing right there. That is just making you feel like you're marketing by giving it to somebody else. Marketing, marketing is meant to drive qualified leads to convert into sales.
Exactly.
It's meant to drive profitable top-line growth. That's the function of marketing. So inherent in that is they're not going to buy Joe's Pizza or Paverart until they know that this stuff actually exists. Mm-hmm. And then you got to whittle it down to answering all their questions, getting them all the things that they need at the right time when they're going to do something with a project to buy your product. So it's not just about the awareness of the company. It's about taking them through the whole sales journey to actually buy. And you got to map that out, what that all looks like. Here's an example. If we do 100 quotes a month, why would we go spend money on bringing more quotes, more top of the funnel awareness, if we haven't even followed up on all of those quotes?
Right.
So we've got a flaw in either we got too many quotes coming in, right? When we got to whittle that down to a more manageable number. But if follow-ups are your key, that you haven't followed up with all your quotes, you either got to slow the funnel down or put more resources into that. But you really do have to examine every area from A to Z, order to cash or awareness to cash, how that all looks. And then a lot of that is post-sale follow-up, like we did with Mr. Connolly. We got him on a Zoom call, and we learned a hell of a lot about our business. So whoever your best sales example is, map that out and compare that to your average or your typical.
Right.
Yeah, we'd be crazy to go do another trade show, spend more time out of the office, and build in more awareness for something we can't even follow up to an A level when we're at a C level today. So it's really comprehensive. It's all the way through your sales customer journey that you got to look at and you got to critically evaluate.
Well, is it safe to say, though, that for at least the foreseeable future, we're probably not going to do any trade shows?
I'll give you an example. As a restaurant, and again, using our friend Angelo, he does a big party business, events. Like a restaurant, if they've got a spare room, and they can do baptisms or Holy Communions or graduation parties, they can generate a lot of money from that. But it's a weekend-driven thing. Imagine giving that to a third party, and the lead comes in through that, and then they got to bounce it over to the general manager or the owner of the restaurant, and outsourcing that function when you can book a $10,000 party. I mean, that's freaking crazy, outsourcing that type of deal when you've got 52 weekends a year, 2 days per week. You got 100 slots you got to go fill. Right? And again, you want to figure out, those are your, if I'm thinking about asset utilization in a restaurant, it's number one, how do you sell more during the week when people aren't going out to eat? If you got a spare room, all those things. But anyway, another random thought there. What was your question?
Well, it was about what are the chances that we're going to do another trade show in the future?
If it's a generic trade show, slim to none.
Right.
There's got to be a reason other than putting a booth up and showing our product, I think. It's a relationship building thing. I'll give you, Techo Block I'm really impressed with as a company. Shout out to Paverart Pete and Ryan Ravalli. They were guests on this. Their trade show at King of Prussia was amazing. I mean, it was kind of like it was a brand-centric Techo Block trade show, but they had great videos, and they tried to be relevant to today's economy of it's hard to find labor, so invest in equipment. Love on your people. They had a lot of great principles, and Paverart Pete's a dynamic speaker, and they had the whole Techo team. They had great product displays, free breakfast, so you got a chance to mingle with other contractors or suppliers. Just a great use of time. That's something I left there thinking. Number one, I think everyone that leaves that trade show is motivated to get out in the field and sell their product. So you got to be looking for something a little bit different. If it's just a generic show your product as people roll through, now we're beyond that, I think.
This goes back to the whole commodity issue. You've got to create something that, you got to create the draw. And they do they've always done a very, very good job with that.
They're drawing people and they're doing this all across the country. They got a massive investment in training the outdoor living community. And of course, there's an inherent benefit. If they can bring people in that are, let's just say they're Unilock people, but they want to go to the Techo Block show, they're not directly selling Techo Block, although they're showing their products. But if they're drawing them into their Techo Block ecosystem, I got to think that works well. They're obviously doing it for a reason. So that's the ultimate in content marketing, trying to help a community that you serve, draw them in, and then they're eventually going to sell that product that they're trying to sell. That's the idea of content marketing. Provide value and don't keep pushing your product, and eventually, when they're ready to buy, they'll buy yours.
Exactly. Well, you've got...
There's a lot to consider for a small business owner.
You've got a product. The first two things you have to have. You've got to have a product and or a service that are essentially unassailable. You do a good job at what it is that you do, a very, very good job. There's always word of mouth advertising. Joe and Mary Smith had a walkway built by you, and it was beautiful. You loved it, and every family member and every neighbor that stops by your house or brings up some sort of project that they want to do on their home at a party or something like that, you're gonna mention that company's name. We just had a deck put on our house, and if that comes up in conversation, I am going to absolutely recommend that contract because he did an unbelievable job.
And you're happy to do it.
Happy to do it, and it is still the best form of advertising that there is. You lead by example. If it's a great product, you bought it, you really like it, you're going to talk to people about that. But again, it's very limited, small group. The scope of that is very, very small. Now, that grows over time, but time's your enemy in that respect.
Yep.
You got to grow that business now.
Yeah, for bigger companies that have marketing and sales, two different functions, they are playing with fire if they don't have the two connected.
Oh, they got to be.
We get visited a lot by different suppliers now. Not a lot, but a fair number of them. And they're either sales or marketing. They really should be joined at the hip because if the marketing people are impressed, and we don't even have a salesperson assigned to us, what do you think that reception is going to be? I mean, they got to be joined at the hip. They got to be consistent. Your finance people have to have an idea about sales. It really, from the moment that you call that business, whoever it is, the customer service has to have a feel about them. A shout out to Hanover Supply. I mean, they know you when you call. They see the caller ID, and they've known you for decades, right?
Right.
But from the moment that receptionist picks up the phone to whoever our salesperson is, to the sample people, they are just a well-run company. I mean, they really are. I mean, it all kind of fits. And every now and then when they're on a road, maybe they'll stop by. But a pretty good, well-run company from the receptionist to the salesperson to the samples to their timeliness to their actual delivery, their execution, just a well-run organization.
And they lead by example in that respect. You're going to want to deal with them. You're looking for ways to deal with them. And do not bring up I'm the vice president of sales and marketing for Hanover.
I think I might have just played that role.
Crack.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I just played the promotion for
Well,
and they're not a sponsor of this either, by the way.
No, that's exactly correct. But
we've probably
yes, by the way, that's exactly right. They are not a sponsor of this podcast.
They are a supplier, though. Full disclosure,
and a very good supplier. They do a great job. But you got to have the product and or the service to promote. How are you going to promote that? Well, small businesses, the beauty of social media, and I know we keep going back to this, but the beauty of social media is that if you've got an iPhone or a generic whatever, the competition, an Android or whatever, you can start your social media presence with what you're currently doing. You can do something. You cannot sit on your hands. If you want to grow that business, and what's one of the first things we said on one of the first podcasts we had here, if you're not growing,
you're dying.
You're dying. And if you want that business to grow, there's a finite number of clients out there that are going to want to buy your product, and you want every one of them to know that you've got and you can offer that service to
Another
them
red flag.
or product.
Speaking to great point. Speaking to owners, there's this podcast I listen to, Acquiring Minds. They talk about
It's called Acquiring Minds.
Acquiring Minds.
Okay.
It does a great job. He brings on people that are trying to go out and buy businesses.
Gotcha.
I forgot the episode, but there was a new owner that came in and decided he didn't want to announce that he's the new owner of the business. He was just going to lay low and not upset the apple cart, kind of playing with a little fear. If a new owner comes into a business, or any owner, let's say it's an owner that's been in the business for 15 years, if they're not willing to sell and do customer service and be the face of a business or be an active person, people value doing business with owners. Now, imagine buying a business, not saying a word to your customer base, and you've got repeat business, and then they find out 9 months later that the business changed hands. What an embarrassing spot to be as that owner. I mean, if you are that timid of your customer base that are driving revenue, I question, should you even be owning a business? Sales is the lifeline of a business. Owners, and I think that I've seen a lot of business owners somewhat passive in the world of sales. If you're not picking up the phone and talking to customers frequently, I question how in touch with the market you are. Or CEOs of bigger businesses. If they're not customer centric, now they've got VPs of sales for a reason. They trust that. But you've got to have your ear to the market. You really do. You've got to touch it. You've got to feel it. You got to be talking to customers frequently. Most owners are, but I've seen a number of cases where CEOs are just that. They're not talking to customers. Now they're relying on the feedback of their people, but I would never want to lose sight of what is the feel for the market, and that's your customers.
It's funny you bring this up, but as my function in the sales department in previous companies that I've worked for, when I finally got to the position where I was VP of Sales and Marketing, or basically in charge of a stable of regional managers, as a sales manager, the one thing that I always insisted on was that I spent time with those guys, each one of them, on the road as often as possible in front of their clients. Okay, Jim, I'm going to be working with you the week of May something to May something, and I'm going to give you 3 accounts that I definitely want us to call on, but the rest are going to be yours, and they better be good. They better be good. I mean, let's do 15% cold calls. I mean, I want to see you really do your thing. So,
Right.
get
a little pressure for the salesperson.
Well, that's look. We've talked about this incessantly, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it is one of the toughest things anybody's ever going to do in their life is try to sell something. It's really, really hard. Yeah, there's some of us that have the ability to talk, okay? That's not selling, okay? That's part of it. That's a tool in selling. But to actually spend the time, I'm trying to tie this in with your CEO analogy, you've got to spend the time with the guys in front of the clients. That's a big part of selling, a huge part of selling.
If sales and marketing are evil, they should be blood brothers or sisters. I can't tell you how many big companies, companies I've worked at, Kraft Foods, they will only hire elite MBAs, and they come out of B school and they make them into a brand manager. They never sold a fucking thing in their life. So they get in front of the
brand
Salesforce,
manager,
and they get in front of the sales, and the Salesforce in consumer products typically starts as a retail sales representative, which is a fancy word for a stock boy.
Right.
They're putting bottles of Kraft salad dressing on the shelf, wondering, why did I go to college for this, right? And now you got this hotshot MBA that's going to come and present this fancy marketing plan to this kid over here, and never the two shall meet. There's no credibility. There's no empathy for that function or the voice to the customer. And yet the MBA's coming in and doing this grand strategy. I mean, it's like they couldn't fuck it up anymore than marketing and sales, creating dividing lines just on the function of who they're hiring and who they're trying to influence over here. And nobody's got the voice, and they don't have the voice of the customer. They've never seen the inside of Walmart.
Right. And these are billion-dollar corporations.
Billion-dollar corporations screwing this up. Where the small business has the advantage is the owner is somewhere to be found. and they can get on the phone and they can close better than that MBA or possibly the retail sales representative.
Right.
So the owner can inspire all this and get marketing and sales working together. They're often the same thing in a small business.
Yeah.
There's not a sales function and a marketing function. They're all one and the same.
Well,
Anyway, another little riff, but I think
it-
we beat this topic up pretty good on marketing.
yeah,
and
we
talked
were
about a lot of
we were
different
gonna
things.
we were gonna wrap this up 10 minutes ago. But it's just it's so interesting, and it's so there are objective ways to approach marketing, and there's very subjective ways to approach marketing too. And sometimes the subjective ways are a lot more appealing. There's all kinds of great stories involved.
Last random thing I'll say is in a small business, you could actually beat the big business in the world of digital if you figure it out. You're not going to figure it out just magically,
Right.
but you can outcompete multi-billion-dollar companies in the world of digital if you're small. There's the opportunity, and there's the case for you can compete with your content, with your values,
Right.
with your SEO, all of that. If you decide to, it's a choice, and then you got to figure out how to get there. And none of it's easy.
Yeah. It's easy to turn. It's very easy to quickly turn a tugboat. Not so easy to quickly turn an aircraft carrier.
Right.
So well,
Great way to wrap it up.
I'll leave it this way. At some point, we need to have a fun podcast, which is just an hour plus of really interesting and pretty cool sales stories. And
War stories.
between the war stories between the two of us, I'm sure we could populate that hour with no problem whatsoever. I've got two in mind right off the top of my head.
Let's
But
make that the
we'll
next
do that.
episode.
We'll do that the next episode. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments whatsoever, call, send us a text, send us an email, give us a 5-star Google review. We really appreciate that. And again, what we mostly appreciate is the fact that you took time to listen. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Good job.